Hi, I'm Heinbach and it's good to have you back. I gave away my test equipment, well, at least 2 euro pallets of it, and I'm happy about that, because now there's a new tape and test equipment studio that other musicians, maybe even you, can use, and it's in Porto in Portugal. It is part of Sonoscopia. Sonoscopia is a unique place run by musicians and sound artists. Every nook and cranny is filled with objects made by artists who did residencies there. It is truly one of the nicest places I have found in experimental music in the whole world.
Welcome all to Sonoscopia, to the new studio of Sonoscopia. The last half a year we've been working on getting this space together as a space where musicians that both work here at Sonoscopia but also here from the whole of Portugal are welcome to create their own music on this stuff, you know?
I gave a workshop on how to compose and write with a test equipment studio, of which you're seeing a shortened version here. If you want more deep knowledge and more details, the full version is on my Patreon.
All of this stuff was donated to us by this fine gentleman here and by Jochen. His father was a big fan of Stockhausen, had a studio at home. After he passed away, through Stefan, he came to us and said, hey, I'm happy to give you guys all these pieces of equipment to use. This is all quite famous already through your work on the internet.
I had 3 statues made from exactly these pieces. But then, of course, Corona happened and I couldn't exhibit these anymore and I couldn't do shows with that anymore. So all of this was in my basement and I was sad about that. It was all not used. When he came and I said, oh, maybe you want this. I was like, maybe you also want this. Maybe you want this. Do you want this? Do you want this? And the second time he came, he asked, do I want this? Do I want this? Because it was in the end 2 pallets of stuff.
My bag still feels it.
First things first, none of this stuff was actually meant for music. All this stuff is research, communications, science equipment. We have, for example, here a Rot und Schwarz bandpass filter made to get really fine look at certain frequencies in telecommunications. Then we've got a medical filter. This is from a French company. I'm gonna ruin it. Sauvage. Sauvage, yes. This is meant to make hearing aids, to model the different holes in the frequency spectrum that someone had in their hearing. And once you had modeled that, you could adjust the hearing aid and see what was missing or not. If you can see here, it says casque, which is like, so there was like supposed to be headphones that you're supposed to wear. And there's 2 little microphones that would come in here, but you can, this has been adapted now to be able to run all your signals through it. And it's lovely because you get a bandpass filter, a low pass filter, another bandpass filter, and a high pass filter. So wonderful filter bank. Classic telecommunications equipment. Pegelsender is a level oscillator meant to just send a certain level to a radio frequency, for example. So then you could check, okay, when I send this level, will I also receive that level? And then you could adjust your antenna to that. And then we've got a noise generator. This big thing just does ksh. It's a good ksh. There's another.
Sounds very warm.
There's another one of these from Marconi, a British, I think that's British. And it also does ksh.
But this one does not have the tube, so it's less warm.
Yeah. It can also be an amplifier. So you can plug a signal into it, and something like this is what I use to make a plugin from called Dials, which combines like a Pegelsender, converted for microphone use, into a filter, bit like this. These have many, many musical applications. This is from Jochen's father's collection, so I haven't tried this one. There's a lot that you can do with this, I'm guessing, because it also has a filter, and potentially this is very powerful. Classic variable phase function generator. No, 2 oscillations and you can shift the phase of it. Very useful for checking phase relationships. This here, that's gonna be fun to work out. This is basically a little sequencer, a little trigger sequencer meant to send little tick, 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 little Morse code kind of messages through the telephone systems or the ISDN systems through modems, and then see what comes out. Will the signal be still there? To basically test ISDN modem telephone lines. Same thing as this one, which is sadly broken. That's the same thing, but this does the pattern and the detection. When you use it for music, it becomes this beautiful 8-bit crusher thingy, because you can put signals into it and crush them. You can take away each single bit, transmit it, and through some clever patching, you can actually get the audio signal out of that. So again, communications tools. This is from the European Space Agency. It's a multiplexer. It's meant to give you 8 microphones or 8 line signals, and then you can switch them sequentially. It enables you to make things move, because as you might have already guessed, ksh and doot is what most of these things do. There's no musical animation in many of these. So with something like this, you can put a signal here, put another one here, put another one here, and then you've got 8 steps, and each step can be a different sound source. That's, again, a sign generator or function generator, but this one has a voltage-controlled amplifier. So this one you can sequence externally, at least in volume. And yeah, similar one, older model.
I think those guys are also the most close what we currently have in the studio as what would resemble a classic synthesizer.
Exactly, and these wavetecs, they remind me sonically of the old Buchla stuff. They have a certain rawness to their waveform that I think is really, really cool. Best oscillator here, simple oscillator, pulse generator, filters. They are non-resonant, unless you would patch them in a way that you can make them resonant by feeding them back into themselves. But yeah, I used them a lot on my records. These are very, very cool. More function generators, more filters. And this one is a bit special. This one is a lock-in amplifier, which is meant to look through the most heavy of noises and find tiny fluctuations in electricity. Like, this is a really, really wild ring modulator. Now we go to something that looks very fancy, because this is a medical tool. This is meant to connect to, for example, to a human. And in physiotherapy or in psychotherapy, to give electroshocks. And you can send a specific rate, that's why it says here, pulses per second stimulation rate. This is to stimulate you with electroshocks. Goes up to 150 volts, so you guys need to not use this output here, because it's a bit high, and not connect them to humans. This is not safe right now, because there needs to be another box that isolates it, and still 150 volts is a lot. So, but what you can do with this, if you don't use that output, if you use these two sync outputs and the delay, you can create intervals, because you've got one pulse basically and another that you can delay, and that gives you intervals. Or you can do like 2 different rhythms. So this can be like a little rhythm generator or pulse interval generator. This one is absolutely beautiful. This is a pattern generator, and this is meant to do the Morse code thing again. It works really, really well basically as 2 things. As a pulse sequencer that you can set via all these buttons, or you can use this to create really nice waveforms, because with each of these switches, you're basically drawing your waveform. Very interesting unit. Same as this one. This is a teaching tool. This is meant to teach people about phase relationships, about function rates, this company feedback. They only do like these education things. But what it gives us, if we want to patch with this, is a quadrature oscillator, meaning we get phase shifted outputs for each of the waveform. So again, from one signal, you get 4 different points where you can grab it. Very useful, again, for creating rhythms and all kinds of things. So it makes me happy, because this was broken, and that's another thing. Like Wouter and the whole crew here, they fixed up all of these things. And that is probably a lot of work. So yeah, good to see these things alive and working again. So this is another generator for beep. Here we've got 2 switches, electronic switches, actually meant for oscilloscopes. So you can have 2 signals displayed on an oscilloscope that can only display one. What you can do musically is you can combine signals and mix them very easily. So I tend to use them as mixers. Beat frequency oscillator, tape machine. Sounds gorgeous. Like in terms of like what you can do sonically with tape, this is a very, very nice one. Then the heart of this is, yeah, my old mixing board, Ramsa. And I really like this desk, because in the end, when you start experimenting with all of these, and they all go beep and ksht, you become the amplifier. You become the modulator, and the faders are your modulation. What can we even do with all of this?
There you go.
We'll find a complementary oscillator.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
And now we have a nice beat frequency because the frequencies overlap. Tandem left, right. Already worked the oscillator, worked the EQ. And that's one of the nice things about this. Not many options, it just beats. But I kind of like it, it's all very, very raw. The miss function. And the miss function is this echo chamber, which is like a tape echo. And apparently either the tape needs to be exchanged, because you can still hear the motor moving, but it adds, we can hear the rhythm of the motor. I like it. This can be a nice rhythm bass. Can we do some shimmer up top with the Terzband and maybe like this one? So white noise feeding into it. That's just white noise through these filters, which every frequency has their own big coil. That's why it sounds absolutely beautiful. Ooh. Ah, you can feel that. Ooh, I like it. Oh, Pegelsender does his. Interesting. Maybe this is for the multiplexer. This could be a hi-hat. Oh,
That's nice.
come on. So the multiplexer is a sequential switch. It means it will switch between different channels in a sequence. So you can change the rhythm. And then you can momentarily latch to a point.
And if you hold them down, it won't play it.
So it's super playable.
Yeah.
Yeah, for test equipment.
It's as close as you come to a keyboard, kind of.
This is processing the feedback, that's wild.
Yeah.
So this is the locking amplifier, it's processing the feedback. So that's kind of the fun. You find all these sounds, like that sound somehow scientific, but they sound like errors. And then to put them like in a sequence where they feel musical. I mean, for me, that's beautiful. It's like a very, but you can see the process is like constant searching, finding something, and then going on. It's very hard to plan, except for some basic stuff.
So we still didn't use the G740 pulse generator here that I fixed this morning.
Okay, cool. Oh, that's a good one. I didn't know it's on. That's good. Got a basic groove going on. Now I would actually like to involve some tape. At home in my test equipment studio, I've got a little 4-track. So, and then I can immediately track the oscillators at different pitches and then I can play it. Right now, I think we're just going to do a tape loop. Like the most stoppages I've had with loops was from using them in the theater. And what they do in the theater, because I used with actors and stuff, lots of live tape looping, or like having them play with loops and such. But what do they do in theaters? They have all these little markers to mark positions. And those are all little pieces of tape. And when the tape loop falls down, it gets completely gunked up.
There we go.
Now I'm going to play this back. I'm going to bypass the erase head here. It won't erase the previous recording. Okay, we got the cops coming in. Also good. I'll go with error. Always if there's an error, I tend to go with the error.
That's our tape now.
Where we want to go with this. So this is original speed. Half speed.
There we go.
Quarter speed. Choices, eh? It's not easy at some point. And that's another fun trick. Like if you want a percussive envelope, you have the channel on off, and then you open it, and then you get little percussive envelopes. Wow! So it's not working anymore. So that's one thing that happens. On landfill totems there's one track called Funktionsverlust, meaning loss of function. And it was one of the function generators was actually starting to go like ding 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 ding. It sounds like Crazy Frog, it sounds better. But it was really good. Suddenly was making music and stuff, just going, I was like, so good. I recorded and then track done, went out for a coffee. 5 minutes later I came back. What's that smell? It was dead. And that loss of function was its dying song. So this right now is doing the same thing.
Let's see what it sounds like.
So it's doing... No, it's not doing it anymore.
No.
It was the... You heard it, right?
When you opened the group, you heard it.
Use the inner knob.
The inner knob?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh!
Yeah, that's the actual where you set the frequency of the main oscillations.
Right? Because there's so much depth in that, especially since it's all done in analog with just, I mean, the reverb was big and that's always nice, but still there isn't a lot to it in the end. It's all very minimal signals, but you can do so much. But you can see more hands helps. So it's like, it's a good thing, like 2-person, 3-person thing to operate these kind of things. And that's what they had back in the studios of the day. In the 50s, there would be Stockhausen maybe, and then there would be like 3 or 4 assistants working with him to like, move this. And they would have stopwatches. So to say like, okay, now 30 seconds of this, 15 of this, and you would constantly be stopwatch, tap, 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 tap.
For us, this was the first step. The first time we can show it, and yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we're very happy you all came.
After the workshop, it was time for Walter and me to perform as odd narrative. if you want to work at Sonisch Kopia and the Tape and Test Equipment Studio, you can apply for a residency with them. If you end up making something there, please tag me. I would love to see what comes out of this new and beautiful studio. My whole journey to test equipment music was made possible by my supporters on Patreon. And if you subscribe there, you get a lot of stuff like sound packs and music, but I understand if a subscription model is not for you. So now I made the first 3 years of sound packs, which is 7.2 gigabytes of sounds from amazing instruments available, and you can buy these for just 29 euros plus VAT. And that's another way to support what I'm doing. If you have any more questions, do put them in the comments below or visit the subreddit. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye.